Lost in the Barrens is a middle-grade novel published in 1956, inspired by the life experiences of author Farley Mowat. His adventures in the remote wilderness of northern Canada led to an adult version of the story, People of the Deer, 1952, as well as this children's adaptation. Mowat is celebrated for intertwining survival narratives with detailed depictions of the Canadian northern wilderness. His most famous work, Never Cry Wolf, 1963, was adapted into a Disney film in 1983. With over 17 million copies sold and numerous accolades, including the Governor-General's Award for Lost in the Barrens and the Canada Library Association Book of the Year for Children Award in 1958, Mowat's legacy is significant. An active environmentalist and member of the Green Party, he has faced criticism for what some perceive as unrealistic portrayals of animals. His works have drawn comparisons to those of other wilderness survival and nature writers such as Gary Paulson, Craig Childs, Jack London, and Ian Lawrence. The story follows Jamie Macnair, who was orphaned 7 years ago when his parents died in a car accident. Since then, he has been living in a boarding school in Toronto, Canada, funded by his paternal uncle Angus Macnair, a fur trapper residing near the Canadian Arctic. When Angus invites Jamie to come live with him in the wilderness, Jamie eagerly accepts. He takes the train from Toronto to the Pass and meets his uncle, stepping into the wild. After a year of life in Angus's log cabin, Jamie befriends Awasin, a Cree boy whose father, Alphonse, is the chief and a close friend of Angus. One day, Angus announces that he and Alphonse must travel south by canoe to sell their furs, leaving Jamie to stay with Awasin in the Cree camp. Once the men depart, Awasin's mother, Marie, sets the boys to work, but their routine is interrupted when Denikazi, the leader of a Denisuline band, arrives seeking the chief. Denikazi reveals that his camp, once their enemy, is facing starvation and requests ammunition to hunt caribou in the Barrens to the north. Although Awasin wants to help, he worries the request might be a trick. After getting his mother's permission, he decides to travel back to the Denisuline camp to uncover the truth and provide ammunition if necessary. Jamie accompanies Awasin on this journey. After several days of challenging paddling, they reach the Denisuline camp, where they learn Denikazi speaks the truth. Awasin prepares to give him the ammunition, but realizes that the Denisuline expect them to join the hunt. He sends word to his mother, promising to return in 2 weeks, and follows Denikazi and his hunting party north into the Barrens. Despite a long journey, the hunting grounds yield no caribou, leading Denikazi to decide to venture further into enemy territory. Aware of the risks, he leaves 2 men to guard Jamie and Awasin by the lake shore while he goes to find deer meat. Restless in their confinement, Jamie convinces Awasin to join him on a canoe trip to explore a nearby structure known as the Great Stone House. With a strong wind at their backs, they paddle down the lake and into a river, but soon find themselves caught in treacherous rapids. Jamie is thrown from the canoe, knocked unconscious, and sustains a severe leg injury. Awasin manages to save both himself and Jamie, along with what remains of their canoe and supplies. The strong wind has carried Jamie and Awasin far from Denikazi's camp. When Jamie regains consciousness, he discovers he cannot walk. As they assess their supplies, they realize returning to Denikazi's camp by foot is impossible. They decide to wait until Jamie heals and then attempt to intercept Denikazi in the Barrens, where the caribou graze. They spend several days in the Barrens, including 1 day fishing and exploring the Great Stone House, where Jamie uncovers artifacts he believes to be Viking in origin. Once they realize that Denikazi will need to pass by their location to return to the lake leading home, they decide to wait along the river. However, during the night, Denikazi is startled, suspecting the Inuit have discovered them, and his men paddle past the sleeping boys on the shore. It takes Jamie and Awasin several days to realize they have been left behind, and they resolve to spend the winter in the Barrens. Over the following months, the boys prepare for the harsh winter ahead. Reluctantly, they hunt several does for meat and hides, forming a bond with an orphaned fawn they encounter. While searching for firewood, they discover a valley and decide to build a cabin there. They enjoy a simple yet fulfilling life in the valley with the fawn until it is tragically killed by wolves. When the bucks arrive, The boys hunt several dozen, processing the meat and furs for winter, though they are both haunted by the experience of the slaughter. Awasin's survival skills prove essential in preparing for winter, while Jamie's ingenuity helps them create their unconventional cabin. They respect each other's differing temperaments and skill sets, relying on each other's strengths, which significantly contributes to their survival. One day, they find two huskies, which they successfully domesticate and attach to a makeshift sled. As winter sets in, it becomes cold and brutal, but their hard work has provided ample food, a sturdy cabin, warmth, and the companionship of the dogs. Despite bouts of boredom, they find contentment. When a break in the harsh winter arrives, the boys load the sled and head south, only to be struck by snow blindness while the dogs devour all their meat. Jamie has a realization: survival depends on working with nature, not against it, and they must return to their cabin in the valley and wait for nature to clear a path for them. Unfortunately, a blizzard sweeps over the Barrens, leaving them lost and freezing. Jamie loses consciousness from the cold and fatigue, but Awasin manages to pull him onto the sled just in time. Nearly at the end of his strength, Awasin is guided by the dogs to an igloo. He crawls inside, dragging Jamie along, and they both pass out. The following day, an Inuit boy named Peetyuk arrives, and Awasin nearly attacks him before Jamie intervenes. Peetyuk speaks English and explains that he is part Inuit and part white, the son of a trapper who became lost and injured in the Barrens. He invites the boys to his Inuit camp, where the community welcomes them, providing food and care to help them recover. Once they are well, Peetyuk's family guides Awasin and Jamie back home. They decide to bring Peetyuk along so he can learn about his Western family roots. Reunited with the Cree and soon after with Angus, the boys joyfully recount their adventures and rescue by the Inuit. Peetyuk stays with the Macnair family for many years, forging a friendship with the Cree community. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, and be sure to subscribe. Thank you.